Well, as I just mentioned, one of the dozens of actions President Trump took during his first hours in office was to grant clemency to all of the more than 1,500 people charged in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Most were granted full pardons. 14 people had their sentences commuted, including the leader of the far-right group, the Oath Keepers, and others convicted of seditious conspiracy. The sweeping pardons include the more than 120 people charged with using a deadly or dangerous weapon or causing bodily injury to an officer. According to the Department of Justice, 140 members of law enforcement were assaulted that day. President Trump was asked Tuesday about the pardons, including one for someone who confessed to assaulting a police officer.
Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything. But I can say this. Murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers that aren't charged all over. You take a look at what's gone on in Philadelphia, take a look at what's gone on in L.A., where people murder people and they don't get charged.
Former Capitol Police Officer Winston Pingeon joins me now. He was on the west front of the Capitol as rioters tried to violently breach the building on January 6, 2021. Thank you so much for being here. First, remind us all what you went through that day.
Yes, thank you, Lindsay. I served with the Capitol Police over 5 years, and on January 6th, with my riot team, I was struck in the face, punched in the face, knocked on my back, my baton ripped and stolen from me. I was pepper sprayed, nearly stabbed with the flagpole, all doing my job, just showing up like I did every day, for 5 years to serve the DC community, to serve Capitol Hill, serve our Congress.
Winston, what was and what is your continuing reaction to President Trump's pardons and commutations for those defendants?
It is really unfortunate. It's disturbing. It's such a slap in the face to those of us who literally experienced physical violence that day. And to know that these violent criminals, these convicted felons, are going to be released entirely scot-free with it means, there's no actual accountability for the crimes that they committed. There has just been no justice here.
And you've talked about how you get a sense that people have forgotten or want to forget about what happened during the campaign. We kept hearing, let's just move on. Let's focus on the future. Why do you want people to remember?
Well, I would love to move on. I would love to look forward. But unfortunately, this effectively, one of these first acts that this is what the now administration is prioritizing is entirely looking back at, really kind of a vengeful retribution. But we cannot forget what happened because we have law enforcement, Capitol Police, and across this country who are serving every day. And, their sacrifices need to be honored. And we can't forget what happened on January 6th because we cannot repeat this. We cannot allow political violence to become normalized and become accepted like so many have tried and almost successfully done so already in this country.
Winston Pingeon, we certainly appreciate your time and your effort to come and speak with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett joins me now. Major, from the president's wide-reaching conversation with reporters there to all of the actions that he has taken in the last 36 hours so far as president, how would you describe sort of the totality and how unusual or not the number of actions he's taking has been?
I think one way I would characterize it, Lindsay, is campaign rhetoric plus, plus, plus. Meaning there were things that then candidate, Republican nominee Donald Trump said during the campaign that he has set in motion with these executive actions. But he has gone beyond his rhetoric in some of the instances. He only a couple of times on the campaign trail said that he would, for example, seek to overturn or invalidate the 14th Amendment's protection for birthright citizenship, something that courts have upheld many years, reviewing whether or not that is exactly what it means in the Constitution. Well, with one of these executive orders, the president has put the entire nation on notice. He's going to try to eradicate that long-standing legal interpretation of what the 14th Amendment means. That's more than his rhetoric suggested. Certainly those around him said that he would go on a case-by-case basis in terms of January 6th pardons or commutations. No, these are sweeping and they're all-encompassing. And on energy and the environment, yes, he said drill, baby, drill. Yes, he said he would do all sorts of things to expand the ability of those in the United States who want to explore for oil or natural gas, but by declaring a national emergency there, he's invested in himself larger powers to do that more rapidly. So I would say the rhetoric was one thing, but these executive actions and orders go even beyond that, and that's also true with the federal workforce and some of the things that he has done through various agencies to eliminate people who are serving in high-powered positions simply because he disagreed with their underlying politics.
Can you elaborate on that, Major?
Yes. So, for example, the commandant of the Coast Guard today was relieved of her duties. And it was said that she would become excessively oriented toward diversity, equity, inclusion. Well, the most important thing that she had done as commandant of the Coast Guard was to say there had been a cover-up under a previous leader about sexual abuse or sexual harassment within the Coast Guard that was having a materially negative effect on recruitment at the Coast Guard. Under her leadership, Coast Guard recruitment for the first time in years met their targets. So someone who had created a better environment, and as I understand it, I'm not an expert on this, Lindsay, the Coast Guard is made up 30% of women. And this question of harassment or sexual assault and the Coast Guard's leadership orientation to those accusations was an important consideration. Those things were being addressed, and profitably so, because recruitment had increased. And for all that, this commandant of the Coast Guard was fired, essentially, by this incoming administration. That's one indication of the priorities, what you consider important, and what you consider a means by which to judge someone's performance. All of those things are more than what was suggested during the campaign.
Thank you for putting that in context for us. I have to be quick with you on this, but this is something we haven't discussed yet. In one of his executive actions, ending the weaponization of the federal government, the Trump administration says definitively the Biden administration and allies engaged in the weaponization of prosecutorial power to upend the democratic process. This action directs all government agencies to find evidence of that and report back to Trump. Is this in keeping with his campaign line, I am your retribution?
It certainly sounds like it. Now, look, if there are examples rather, of government entities looking at someone and making a decision either in terms of regulatory matters or distributing federal relief or disallowing or prohibiting someone from obtaining something from the federal government they would otherwise receive, but for politics, of course the American people want that to be brought to the attention of the president and dealt with. But if there aren't, and you're just simply suggesting or alleging without any facts simply because you disagree with their politics, that would be weaponization just led by a different party and a different president.
Major Garrett, thank you.
Sure.